Alright, let's see if we got this. What's up, everybody? I'm here. So I'm doing just boring stuff, but
The effort to dethrone my brother is
I wanted
ongoing. Assist me
to
and secure your place
give
in
my
my
emotional
kingdom.
roller coaster of a life currently. Because, kind of putting it out there in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, I guess I don't know. You know, I did not know a lot of things growing up, other than my grandfather raised me quite different in a lot of ways. And, as a boy, I would be like, so, I knew my family came from Germany, Baden-Württemberg. Well, and then I was like, oh, we're German. He's like, we're Bavarian. And I was like, I didn't even know, but yeah, I'm Russian too. And the biggest thing on my grandfather's side, and it was so crazy for me, this whole realization of, because I'm a Hummel. I guess I should put that out there first off. So how does this all work out? Well, Hummels in German translate as bumblebee, and my grandfather had a story associated with that as well. Timer. I only got like 30 minutes here. I'm trying to get a couple things done. And the biggest thing about it was, like when I was growing up, of course, I knew I was a Hummel. I knew that. So there's these Hummel figurines, and I never put it two and two together because Hummel can be common, it can be. And the way our name is spelled is Schwäbisch, right? So I was like, oh, I never thought about it, because when you look at the first Hummel figurines, they had crowns on the bottom of them, and that's significant. Now, Bertha Hummel, who actually drew the the Hummels, and they would later become figurines, was a nun, and there was a Bertha in my family, and I never put two and two together. I just never did. Um, I just never did. And then my grandfather, like, we left prior. My great great grandfather left prior to the fall of the empire. Okay, I knew that, and he was in Ganin prior to leaving. He was born in Baden-Württemberg, and my uncle was born in Ganin, which is now in Poland. And during the Prussian, um, you know, Empire. Uh, and when he came here, my uncle had died, but my uncle was actually registered Duchy of the Holy Roman Empire. Now, there's a lot of things, because I can't access a lot of my stuff. Is private. My family side on that side is private, so I actually do have to go to Germany to get the documentation. So I'm kind of knocking out two birds with one stone, because that's what my grandfather wanted eventually, for us to return. And like I said yesterday, under the conditions that it was a democracy, a reunified Germany under democracy. Now, my grandfather died in April. The wall came down in November. I did not know about, like, what was my chances of becoming a German citizen. Um, and I'm planning on doing maybe a different channel to give perspective of my life growing up in Ohio, around the areas in which I grew up, and how that impacted my values in different ways, and how, even though I grew up in America, like how my values were different and more Deutsch based values. First off, I'm blunt, I'm honest, you guys know that. I'm very direct. And I don't like being late for anything. I'm always way ahead of schedule. So there's a lot of things that's very, I'm just instilled with. But the emotional roller coaster for me is just all of this unloaded because I look like my relatives. And that's, I think, the hardest part because my grandfather really struggled. And for the longest time, I didn't understand why. I didn't understand all of these things. And I think he pretty much just tried to shelter as much as he could, So I do think he was aware of a lot of things, but, you know, uh, it's, well, it, you know, we believed in eventually, like, I tell people, like, the whole idea was, democracy without corruption, right? I mean, that was pretty much the goal. And we weren't there for World War One or World War Two. Well, not my direct line, anyways. And my grandfather would teach me as a boy about things, and it's hard because it makes me upset thinking about it. Because as a boy, I wasn't allowed to forget. Because he would say that he's like, you're never allowed to forget what happened. We weren't there, but that's something that we are never allowed to forget because what our people did and the atrocities that took place. And so that's why I was taught how to disseminate information as a boy, because he was like, there's always going to be a biased opinion, and your position is to question everything in life. And that is your position because you don't have the luxury to take a side. And that's how these are the things like I was literally instilled with as a kid, and I didn't understand it. And like I said, I lost him. I was really young when I lost him, and it really did shake my world out because he was the closest person I had. When he left, it was just unbelievably hard for me. So yeah, it was really bad, and fulfilling his wishes brings me a lot of joy, because to go back to our ancestral home, but to get the closure, like a lot of people will always say, well, what do you expect? What do you expect? What do you mean, what do I expect? Just closure. That's it. I think in this life, expectations is what, I guess, the more you expect, the more you set yourself up for disappointment, right? And like so I have little to no expectations. I have none. Tying everything, I'm hoping my grandfather left records, papers, or something. I've been fortunate enough to talk to some people from different embassies and different things, and so I've been fortunate in that element. But there's like nobody's like giving me a direct answer as of yet. I was told I'll be disclosed more information later, at a later date, and that's fine. But and I'm really happy about when I was over in Germany, I got to meet a lot of Ukrainian refugees, and it made me feel good about what the country's doing to accommodate these, people under these circumstances. And it brings my heart such joy to see, people at least have a haven under these circumstances. So, I mean, I think eventually you always want to go back home, because the funny thing to me is the way I was raised detached. So I don't have attachments. So everybody's like, well, how can you do that? Because when my grandfather left me, I was alone. I had family here, but my values aren't the same. How I was raised and how I do things is all different. So I never fit in. Like I like put it this way, like I don't hit on females to this day. Like anytime I dated a female, I never took initiative to do it. So that just was not me. That's not how I'm raised. I'm raised, you know, a woman. You don't approach a woman until she shows interest, and then you know you'll do that, right? So, and you be mindful of things. You know, like I said, it's just everything is different. Like I told somebody, I'm like, have you ever heard the phrase "going Dutch"? They're like, yeah, and I'm like, well, that's, you know, kind of how I see things. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, it's different. So when my grandfather died, my grandmother actually, she was still pretty, you know, she could have dated other people. And I asked her, I said, well, you know, why didn't you ever date anybody else, Mom? And she's like, oh, honey. She's like, you know, you make a vow to say death do you part, but a love like that comes once in a lifetime. She's like, you know, it was never perfect. You know, your grandfather would make me very upset at a lot of different times, but you know, the love I had for him was real, and it wouldn't be fair to another individual to, you know, date them when I gave my heart to another man a long time ago. So she literally spent the rest of her life alone because she never wanted to date another man because she loved my grandfather. So I do believe in love, but I just feel like a lot of people are just married for all the wrong reasons. They get married for convenience. For women, I'm not trying to be misogynistic, but it, you know, they if a man has nothing to offer them, then how can they love them, right? So it is there's a double standard there in this culture. In Deutsch, my girls are raised with Deutsch values, so they're not raised to look for providers. They're raised to find partners. Why? Because regardless if that man comes under hard times, they don't leave their man because that's what building something together means, is you're a unit, you're one. And you take that vow for better or for worse, in sickness and in health. And I tell somebody, true story, my dude got in an accident. He would do anything for his wife, but he became permanently disabled, and his wife quickly replaced him. They had kids and everything, but because he was put on disability, he was expendable. And I don't feel like that's an isolated case in this culture, because they don't value, you know, bonds. They don't try to actually build bonds. They build convenience. They build life based on convenience. And that's why I'm like, is it going to be different? There's no place without problems, right? There is no place. So, like, does Germany fix a lot of problems? No, the first thing, I'm not looking to get into a relationship ever. That's just, you know, for me, I have no, you know, the damage is already done for me. Like, it's done. It's done. So, you know, I'm not going to put somebody else through my trust issues and my issues because I was raised in a back-asswards culture. So, no. I'm fine spending the rest of my life as is. And I told people, you know, everything happens for a reason, because had I had an attachment to somebody, I wouldn't be able to take this journey. So, you know, it was meant for me to be by myself at this point in my life, because my children are grown. You guys already know that I raised my children as a single dad, but they're grown, they're out of the house, so now I'm able to take this journey. Let me see if there's any comments. Yo, Harold, what's up? My father's family came to this country in 1734. Their last name spelling was Spleichler. I hope I didn't mess that up, which became to be Spiker by 1800s. Yep, that's for sure. We never forget, right? And we're not. I'm not allowed to. That's the whole thing. Like, um, my so I'm literally genetically attached to four royal families, and my grandfather's documents transferred, and I put it on the post. His naturalization and his documents were all there under the U.S. registration, and of course, there's nothing I can do about that. I'm from that family. He was a part of the family. I'm from that I'm a descendant of that family, and I look like I said, I look like my family. There's just no. It's emotional, and I don't know. It's kind of like it's a whole new world for me, and at the same time, I don't have expectations. I really don't like, and it's hard to like try to talk about because it seems crazy to me. Like, but at the same time, you have people question. I'm like, oh yeah, so the Hummel figurines are just a coincidence. The first gens with the crowns on them, that's just a coincidence. The affiliation with the church and the family, that's just a coincidence. The, there's just, do you believe in coincidences? I mean, look at my face. If you take a look at my cousin, we look alike. There's nothing. We're identical. Me and my one cousin are identical cousins. Except he has hair, so I'll give him that. I have thin hair. He's got a nice full head of hair, so I'll say he's better looking in that regards. So, but we're identical. Except our chin is slightly different. Other than that, we're spitting images of each other. So there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do. I can't change anything. I can't. I cannot change that, and I don't know how anything's going to happen or how there's just nothing I can do. So this is all quite an undertaking for me, and I wish everybody the best. But for me, it's just closure, just a lot of closure, man, and fulfilling my grandfather's wish. And I think that's the biggest part. It doesn't matter what happens when you don't go in with expectations and you're doing things for the right reasons. It doesn't matter what happens. Your intentions are pure, and when you have pure intentions, you are never going to set yourself up for disappointment. And I think that is my mentality in life. Like, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily, a silver lining kind of guy, but I try to see both positive and negatives in association. Like, genetically, like I did a trait on my genetics too. Genetically, I'm the least to take any risk, and a lot of people are like, "This is such a risk," because a lot of people just got this misconception of what Germany is, because they still think of it like post-war. I was like, "Are you guys crazy? It's not like that. It's not like that over there." It's not. I mean, when I first arrived in Germany, I fell in love. I felt at home. I felt at peace, and that was hard for me to explain, because like I would remember my grandma's cooking or things. I remember like the potato pancakes, after the next day after the holidays, or there was just certain things like it took me back. It really did. Growing up, and not to say you can't have that here, but like I said, I just never really belonged in the essence of saying, oh my God, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know. For me, nothing's ever going to be there's never going to be a resolution to everything, so I don't ever have that anticipation either. But I am happy with how things have progressed, and now that's given me the opportunity to make this journey.
This should extinguish your rebellion.
If that makes sense. Man, this thing's being so weird. Somebody get the last one? Okay. But yeah, I definitely wanted to stop in and kind of, you know,
this isn't over.
Drop in and kind of give everybody a heads up. I can imagine, like, people are like, people have laughed about it, and that's fine, but I'm like, I think that's why I did TikTok. I don't care if people are skeptical. I think you guys know me. I've always said, don't believe me, do it for yourself. Remember, I've always said that. And that's what I'm doing, I think being skeptical is a good thing in life. You should be skeptical. Practical. That's very, much who I am as well. And I think, but you never know until you do it. And so for me, I have no choice but to do this. So I have no choice but to see this through. So. But yeah, it's and like I said, I really do wish people, but like I'm not gonna lie. I believe in the fundamentals of the Constitution of this country. I do. But I don't feel like it was like the founding fathers anticipated, hey, our politicians are going to be allowed to be lobbied. And that essence already be compromised before they hit office. I don't care what side you take. I don't care. I don't care if you align left, right, centric. I don't care. Every representation in our political ecosystem is compromised because it's already been lobbied by somebody or something. And I don't feel that is a true representation of democracy, right? Because you're supposed to, no matter what side you take, you're supposed to represent the people who elected you, not the people who funded you. And politicians can say, oh, well, we represent our constituents. Well, if that's the case, then why aren't you trying to pass a bill on all sides to prevent lobbying, period? If that's the case, but you're not. They're never going to install term limits because it would not benefit them. And they're never going to pass a law in this country to prevent lobbying. And in that essence, I don't feel it represents the freedoms or the democratic process that this country claims so much. And not to say that I don't love America, I do, because I think America does a lot of great things, but at the same time, unless you're striving for a non-corrupt democratic process, you're always going to have forms of corruption. And therein lies the problem. So for me, I'm just going to call it how I see it. You guys know me. And so I'm not taking a political side. I'm just making the observation known what it is. So I got enough time to put in one more tune. But yeah, I appreciate all the support throughout the years, guys. I really do. I know, I imagine people are going to laugh at me. You know what? I always tell people, there's always a chance that this might not be what it is. But I doubt it. Like I said, the looks there, the documentations all seem to be in order. And for me personally, it's just, it's overwhelming for me too, to say the least. And especially the names. I mean, that, like I said, we got confirmation on all that, and so when I did my DNA, it was, there was a lot I was having to take in as well. dice. Alright, just go over here. Mess with this. But yeah. There you guys have it. It's my life. You watch it, I live it. So I'm thinking about doing the channel. I think it would be really nice though, because like I said, when you grew up like kind of like I did, and everything is so kind of has so much comparison. You're just like, this is so crazy to me. So I definitely, I think I want to do recordings while I'm in here. I'll create a new station, a new channel. And if you guys are interested in, you know, following my journey, and, you know, that would be awesome. You know, obviously, you guys know me, man. Like, you know, if I do anything, I'm not doing it for popularity reasons. So, you know, I'm not, there's never going to be, like, I try to avoid clickbait. Try to. I think everybody's guilty of it to a degree. But at the same time, it's just like, I just want to show people who are always questioning things and they don't know. It's like, yeah, there are differences. There are major differences, but from my world, it's not much of too many differences, because the way I was raised and these similarities. And I think if I expose people to that on both sides, you know, because people in Germany will ask me, you know, what's America like? And I'm like, well, that depends where you're coming from. Because I'm from Ohio, in a certain part of Ohio to be exact, and I'm up towards northeast Ohio, so I've been exposed to like Cleveland and all that my entire life. But at the same time, I grew up a little south of there, so there's Dutch and Deutsch background, and people will always be like, oh, Dutch is German. I'm like, no, that's Netherlands. But okay. I'm like, but yeah, it's a dialect. But the cultures are very similar. Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, it makes all sense. It makes total sense to me.
Blow those loyalists out of the water.
You know, now that I look
At
back.
this rate,
All of it. It all adds up.
Fitted for his shiny new crown within weeks. Check back with him tomorrow.
But yeah, I always, and I'll be honest, if, like in Ohio, we have the tradition during the holidays of pork and sauerkraut. So every holiday, around the holidays by New Year's, people with Dutch or Deutsch background, we always put cooking up pork and kraut. Like growing up in my house, if you sneezed, you say Gesundheit. You know, it's good health to you. You know, we have this amazing Fleischwurst in Ohio called trail bologna. Like, it's what we call it here. And it's amazing. And you can't get that everywhere. You know, I mean, you can get it. They call it ring bologna, I guess, other places, ring bologna. So I think that's on the package, I want to say too. But we call it trail bologna here. But it's Fleischwurst.
Raise your money and you take your chances. Bring your presents, get your prize.
So when, like I said, the comparisons were quite eye-opening to say the least. But it's been emotional for me because I think about my grandfather. I see him every time I look in the mirror anyways. I always have. I look like my grandfather. I'm pretty much a spitting clone of him. And then it made more sense why he, I think, struggled. And maybe why we were so close.
It. Game's over. Step along, nothing to see. Get going before
it's hard.
good mood wears off. That means now.
You know, this is just, it's like, it's a roller coaster in every essence, you know, from, you know, I can't really explain it. It's emotional. It's, you know, some of it's spiritual, I think. I feel like a sense of spiritual connectivity in some ways too, because, you know, there's almost a yearning to go to that specific part of Germany, right? My grandfather would say, you know, things, and So it's almost like I feel like, in essence, we're always called back, from where we once came. There's a yearning for it. And I think that's a spiritual connection in some ways. And yeah, this to me is just like I said, I have no expectations. I have none, and I don't think you can. I honestly don't think you're really going to be able to have that. Um, I don't know. It's weird because like I had people in my own life who's known me my entire life question me, and then of course even with all the evidence, and I'm like, why would I make this up? You guys have known me your entire lives. Have I ever said such a thing? Have I ever made such accusations, such ridiculousness? Have I ever? And I'm like, you know,
Oracle must have sent
I'm
you to
like,
help.
look,
I can handle my
it doesn't
people's affairs,
matter.
but since you're already here,
The
help
past
me
is the
push Ocean Master
past.
from this Atlantean outpost.
But
He
there
took
was
it
a
from the station
reason
guards.
that I
Now,
was
we
told
take
that
it back.
he wanted this to happen for our family. That was a reasons that he wanted it to be under a democracy, a
brother,
reunited
you've arrived,
Germany
and
under
you brought
democracy.
friends to witness
There's
my
a
coronation.
reason
You cannot
that
stop me from taking my rightful place on the
my
throne of Atlantis.
great
This is
great
my
grandfather
outpost
picked
now,
the
and when the
location
tides of war turn
where
my
he
way,
was. My
I
grandfather
will be king.
lived in West Virginia for a short period of time, for actually quite a bit, but he died in Strasburg, Ohio. My family would settle in the part of Ohio, so I was literally between West Virginia and Ohio with a lot of family members, and that makes sense too because in Germany, in Bavaria, you would have the Alps, the big mountains, and when you go down towards West Virginia, you see that type of terrain. So, like I said, all of it just always makes more sense. And a lot of people here have that, I guess, that background. Dutch, Deutsch. And like I said, I didn't know about the association of my family. I just knew I was a Hummel. That's all I knew. My mom last name's Hummel. And I didn't put two and two together. I never did that. I never did. Never thought about it. Just never did.
Will be mine.
Get out of my sight, Ocean Master. This outpost is liberated.
Yeah,
Be
there it
gone.
is. Nothing I can do.
I will be king.
Can't change things, and once I get the answers, I think that'll be closure, and then my family will have options.
It's critical
Whether
that we
they
hold this
decide to stay in
outpost.
America,
Now,
or
unless
my
it
one
turns to
daughter wants a
battle
dual
above.
citizenship. So that's what she's hoping for. She's hoping for a dual citizenship, and she would love to have that. And if that was the case, I think that would benefit a lot of my family members, So, anyways, Harold, thank you for stopping in, and thank you guys for your support. Let me check this. I appreciate it. Like I said, and do I think like I'm better than anybody? No, I just have a very complex family past. You know, the hardest part on me is looking in the mirror and seeing the pictures. I think it's my biggest struggle. You know, it's probably the biggest struggle I have. You know, um, other than that, that's it. I think everybody has to live a life, and sometimes we're destined to, for certain things that we don't know. We don't have the answers. Like you don't always have answers in your life. None of us do. We have goals. We have, you know, um, things that we inspire us to become better, and I think that's a good thing in life to want to become the best version of yourself that you can be. In my life, it's been easier to sabotage myself because, my biggest fear was succeeding in anything because like I never wanted to be somebody to be with me because of an association of success or whatever, or my family, because my dad's side of the family already has some really, affiliation to it. And I'm like, I don't want that in my life. I want somebody to care about me for me, and that never happened. And I just was like, you know, and then I find this out, and I'm like, you beg for it. I mean, have you guys ever watched those TikToks about those guys who have money and they're out acting like they don't, right? And these women are turning them down until they go in their car and it's a really nice car and they're like, "Oh, is this your car? Can we go out on a date?" And they're like, "No, we can't go out on a date. You didn't wasn't interested 2 minutes ago. You weren't interested." And and I felt that. I feel that. Like, I feel bad for people who have things because that's all people see, right? They don't see what's in here. They see what's everything else from the outside perspective. I always tell dudes, you you know, you see this beautiful woman, and sometimes it hurts her because people can't see past it. They just see inside, and sometimes they hate it so much it's their justification. So, I tell people um, you know, it's unfortunate, and I think if people would start caring about the people behind the things instead of the things that the people have, we would be better off. But unfortunately, we've, made this bed. It's always about succeeding. How much money do you make? What car do you drive? Where'd you go to school? What this, what that? And unfortunately, that hasn't given us prosperity. It's actually taken away the values that this country grew upon, and that's family, that's opportunity, that's, overcoming the odds. And I think that's what makes America great was the foundation that it was built upon. And the more we perpetuate, you know, individualism, tribalism, um, selfish behavior, condoning, you know, um, inconsider inconsideration, those are the things that's taking, you know, the taking the values away. It's stripping it. These are my opinions. I mean, but if you disagree, you disagree. But I think um, it's unfortunate. Is very unfortunate. I always tell people, I don't care how you live your life. I don't care. I'm not here to judge you. I'll never judge a person. But would ask one thing: are you happy with your life? And I think everybody in this world has the right to pursue happiness. I think everybody in this world has the right to be, um, not to be, that their initial human rights taken from them. And I always tell people it's easy because you'll take a look at the past and you say, "Oh, that was bad," but you won't take a look at the present and make a correlation to anything. And there is correlation because if those are warning signs of things to come, if you don't learn from the past. And I always tell people, I don't care how a person lives their life. If they're not doing me any harm and they're not doing anybody else harm, what does that have to do with me? You know, I don't care. You know, I live my life accordingly. I look towards my happiness. If the more I let outside influences determine that happiness, the more I'm being my happiness is being taken from me. And in my world, I don't watch news. I don't watch anything like that. And if I do read anything, and that's how I do get most of my information, or I might use something to reference something, but that's how my determination is made. I literally will say there's always a biased perspective, even from me, and that's why I've always told you guys, do not believe me. Take it. Do something for yourself. I will show you how I came up with something. I'll show you this. But in the end, it's your decision in life. It is your determination. It is all these things. Your individuality should be important to you. But if it's not, that's your perspective, you know? But for me, I never want to conform to anybody or conform to an ideology. Why? Because every coin has two sides. Just because it lands on heads doesn't mean I have the right to dismiss that there's tails until I pick it up and take a look at the side. Because if you get a double-headed coin, well, you got played the entire time. Peace.